Coming to you live from Indianapolis in the NFL Combine, and joining us now, NFL Network draft analyst Bucky Brooks, who also does the Move the Six podcast with one Daniel Jeremiah.
Yeah.
I know he works for the Jags, but he'll always be a Buffalo Bill for us.
Always.
His teammate, man.
Yeah.
That's one of my guys.
Sevy.
Or I'm one of his guys.
Sevy.
You hope.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I want to start with kind of an overarching look, if we could, Bucky, at the draft class. One thing we've noticed, more older players, a lot of 24 and even 25-year-olds in this class, kind of the last remnants of the COVID kids, right, that get extra eligibility. That's number one. Number two, we were talking to Brandon Beane yesterday, and it's his opinion that elite talent at the top isn't quite as numerous, and I guess this is kind of every year to some extent, but he thinks the sweet spot is rounds 2 through 4, where there can be a lot of value had at a number of positions. But he also, and I think he's not alone in this, he thinks this is going to be a defensive-heavy draft because more of the prospects seem to be on that side of the ball, especially in what is seen as a down quarterback year. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, look, I agree with Beane, having worked with him in Carolina. Like, he's kind of on it. And I would say this, part of the reason why you're seeing more older players, NIL incentivizes guys to stay around. If you're not going to be an early prospect, why not stay in college,
make money,
more reps, make money, and do all those other things? So I think you're actually going to end up getting a better player in terms of preparedness, ready to play. When it comes to this draft, you're right. Not at the top, so maybe you have like 11 to 15 guys that are true first-rounders, but you have a bunch of guys that are starter-quality players. And now it's a matter of being able to identify the guys that fit perfectly with your scheme so you can plug them in. And even though they may be a second-round talent, they play like starters right away because they're in the right fit.
That's one of the things that's happening in Buffalo. They're switching defensive philosophies under Jim Leonard now. It seems to be, and then they've got a bunch of guys whose contracts ran out.
Yeah.
So not only free agency's got to be in the mix, so does the draft. Last year they had, I think, 5 out of their 7 players were defensive side of the ball. It may be exactly like that this year. Although today you got people picking them because of the wide receiver question. Number 26, they're going to take a wide out, right? I mean, who knows? What are your thoughts on getting to the bottom half of the first round, which is where the Bills are perennially at? How do you have a philosophy that gives you a chance?
Especially when you're saying you only got about 16 to 20 first-round grades.
Well, I think people always say this, and it's become like one of those things that people like hearing, best player available. And so when you do that, if you rank the players in a pure system where we're grading them for talent, production, what we expect their potential to be at the next level, then more than likely at the bottom of the first round, you can get a player that can come in. And I think you have to have kind of a wide net because you just don't know what's going to take place. The 25 picks before you don't know. So you can't necessarily say. And so you have a cluster of players that are going to be there. And what you don't want to do is lock yourself into a position. Right. We're going to take the best player. And so if there's a inside linebacker or wide receiver or whatever, which is the better player? And then what is the depth in terms of supply and demand at those positions? So if inside linebacker is thin, let's take this guy now. We can come back and get the wide receiver because there are more guys. So it's playing all of those games, and that's why these conversations extend beyond the purity of the players.
That's why you could, like for the Bills at 20, they could take an inside linebacker who could be an elite inside linebacker, skip around, come back in the second, maybe even the third, and get a wide receiver who's got traits enough that you can school up.
Yeah, and so that's why the conversation that you have, if you're Brandon Beane and you're the top executive, you're looking at the draft, you're asking you guys, okay, where are the strengths of the draft? Where are the weaknesses? Okay, so we're looking at these two positions. Is it strong in free agency? Is it strong in the draft? Okay, now that we're there, okay, this position versus another position, should we attack it in the draft, or how can we attack it? Should we attack it early? Can we get comparable value late? Because some will tell you there's not much difference between the player that you pick at 26 and the player that you may pick at 70 in certain positions. So it's about understanding who's available and what you're looking for.
Okay, so wide receiver, and I know you played some corner also in the NFL, but I wanted to ask you this maybe from a wide receiver perspective. Looking at the corners in this class, whose film did you watch and you'd say, man, if I was a receiver, this guy would be a pain in the neck to play against? Who kind of jumps out at you at the cornerback position?
So stylistically, there are a few different guys. So people are buzzing over the kid from South Carolina, Brandon Cisse,
yeah.
because he's a great athlete. Man, he's a great athlete.
Lot
He
of
moves
juice.
around. He's
Right.
fluid. He can run around and do all those things that you want to see. That's terrific. But then there's another guy that may not be a first rounder, but Chris Johnson from San Diego State. And I think in my thing on Johnson, I wrote he reminded me a lot of Tre'Davious White in terms of high
Technique,
IQ
sound.
player, technically sound, has the ability to make plays on the ball. I think in Buffalo, in that defense, and particularly with Jim Leonard coming over and the things he's done, you got to have tools in the toolbox. And in having tools in the toolbox, can you play man? Can you play zone? Can you play press? Can you play off? Because as we've seen in this league, it's hard to just get one guy that's a one-trick pony. You got to have some other things because game plans vary from week to week.
Let me ask you this, another philosophical question. What happens? You're trying to take this best player available. How far does that go? So you got a team like Buffalo. They got Dawson Knox, and let's say Dawson Knox, because of his contract, people have been saying maybe they'll release him, maybe a cap carry. But if he stays, and they got Dalton Kincaid, who is a difference maker at tight end, and they got Jackson Hawes at tight. What if a good tight end pops up at a draft? You know what I mean?
You didn't put four on your roster?
Right, exactly. What happens when you're trying to take the best player available and it's a player at a place where you don't have any needs? Then that's the problem, right? I mean, what happens when you have to pick, oh, man, we're going to take another tight end?
No, so like to give like a visual perspective of what the draft board looks like. So you have a horizontal board. So imagine every position, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, that works across. And then you have a vertical board that is your top 150 players just ranked. In a perfect world, what you're doing, so say we have that player that has a grade, we'll just say like a 7.0 grade at wide receiver. We have a defensive tackle that is maybe 6'9", and another guy that's 6'9". Well, now that's where the nuance of the position of value. Hey, we need this guy. So, 6'9", 7'0", that's close enough we can go here.
Right.
But not 7'0 and 6'5". So it's within reason where you have these conversations. Hey, if we operate, we have this scenario, they'll go through. Hey, we can take this D tackle, this one. Which one would we want? And then you have those things where we're scrimmaging ahead of time. So when draft day comes, hey, this is what we feel. These three guys on the board, if these three are available at our pick, we're going to take this one, and here's how we rank them, 1, 2, and 3. So you begin to have those things. So best player available doesn't mean, hey, we're taking the best player.
We're taking
no
a
matter
quarterback in the third round when we got Josh Allen.
It's a nuance. It's a nuanced conversation that you have to have.
Is that when you get in the conversation where somebody jumps up on a table, right? But when there's some question marks.
There has to be some things, and hopefully it's a draft room where you have the conversation ahead of time. All these things should be meted out, like in that month of April when they come for those meetings. Let's get all these conversations out. So now over draft weekend, we've talked about it. We have a clear plan in place. If these things happen, we're ready to proceed in this way.
Edge rusher considered to be a good class this year, but you got 18 teams in this league that did not have a double-digit sack guy last year. They're going to fly off the board because everybody needs one. Bills, switching schemes. They got a different type that they need now, an outside linebacker to come screaming off the edge. They need some speed guys. They get gobbled up quick, and you're picking 26. Like, how deep does the edge class go, and how long are guys going to last that, you can plug in sooner rather than later?
There can be some guys there for the Bills to take. Cassius Howell is a guy that they talk about.
The whole short arm thing is the big thing.
Well, that's what people say, but, now there's a different thing. So it used to be those things. Everyone wanted Bruce Smith, but, Bruce Smith is available. That's a 4-3, even though it was a 3-4 back in the day.
Right.
But he's basically a 4-3. So what are we looking for off the edge? And as you talked about, and I think this is the thing because typically it's a copycat league. People going to look around and see, man, Seattle got it done with a bunch of different guys kind of collectively coming together, not one guy dominating.
The collective.
Yeah, but Myles Garrett is 15. Yeah, but Cleveland wasn't. These teams are doing it by committee. So how can we put together, in essence, a basketball team on the front line?
That's what you have to do, yeah. Miles Garrett comes around once in a generation. So does Bruce. So does, these guys. Micah Parsons,
And that's why they go at the top of the board. How can we piecemeal it and put it together where we have 3 or 4 guys that can contribute? So we got Greg Rousseau, but who can we put on the other side to complement him? Who's the interior rush that we can put to complement the guy? So, hey, maybe we have 3 guys with 8 sacks as opposed to the one guy with 15 and whatever. We're seeing other teams are being able to do it. Even the Denver Broncos, they had some, but it was a bunch of guys that were piling in.
Cooper, the young kid from Alabama.
And so you have to have that. And as we think about throwing waves of guys at the quarterback, that's the way the league is going.
Okay.
Right.
I think we're out of time here, Bucky. Our time went quickly. But we appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by.
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you, man. We got a new stadium.
Yeah.
New stadium coming.
You ought to see it,
I got
man.
a chance.
It's going to be a palace.
Dude, you ought to see it.
Oh, it's going to be nice.
It's
It'll be nice.
It's be nice.
Always a pleasure to have
Great
you
to
on.
see you, man.
Appreciate the insight as
Thanks for
always,
having me.
Bucky. That's Bucky Brooks, NFL Network draft analyst. We'll take a break and be back with more as our combine coverage continues here in Indianapolis on One Bills Live.